I think in the last 18 months, I've just grown in so much love for my community. It might sound corny, but I think the relationships that I have with sporting clubs, with local service clubs and things, just continue to grow, and I continue to be so inspired and warmed by particularly the volunteers who make up the groups in my community. I met someone when I was working at a local cafe some years ago. He used to come in each week and have coffee and we'd chat a lot. And he runs one of the local neighbourhood watch groups. He's done that for about 35 years. And recently he's had some health troubles, and just watching sort of the group not knowing what to do, I guess, without this volunteer who's been the lifeblood of their organisation, just is a really, really sort of interesting insight to have into a local club and how much they rely on volunteers who give their heart and soul to the community. I spent so much time out and about in the community every weekend, most weeknights, whether it be at governing councils or sports clubs. And I think that it's not necessarily a learning. For me, it's a growing in relationship with people, and I do feel like I have the best community on earth. I think back to my birthday a couple of months ago. It wasn't even a special birthday. 10 different groups of constituents and or community groups just showed up at the office with flowers, and what that means to me as a local member, to feel genuine love and respect with all of my neighbours, or whether it be walking through the supermarket and having kids that have done Parliament tours sort of wave to you in the aisles at Coles. It just means so much to me. I think the strength of the relationships that I've been able to build and continue to build. And also I think the impact that that's really having, particularly on young people in my community, whether it be on a Parliament tour or at their local footy club. I've recently gone back and joined a netball club, and I haven't been involved in netball in some years. And the reason I did that was because the girls who I'd gotten to know through their schools, through visiting their games, they asked me to. And what it meant to them to have me come and play netball at their local club was just so important, just so special. So I'm sure that there's lots that I've learned along the way, but for me, when I look back on it, I just marvel at the growth in the relationships with the people around me, and I feel so incredibly lucky to have that. I think in the last 18 months, I've met so many different groups with different focuses, and I think I'm learning more and more about the things that matter to me in a policy perspective. I've got 3 parliamentary interns at the moment, and that's another program that I really, really think is super important and helps young people develop some really important skills. I was a parliamentary intern myself, so I really, really value the strength of that program. But the 3 of them had to write an assignment with a policy area that I had helped choose. So one is doing research into ovarian cancer, which is a huge area of interest for me after losing a friend to ovarian cancer at the age of 27. One is researching stillbirth awareness. My mum had a stillborn baby when I was little, and again, that's a really big area of policy interest for me. And the other one is looking at IVF outcomes. Although I don't have a personal experience with that, I've seen so many friends and family members go through that process, and I do think there's a lot of stigma around that. I also think that's something that's really relevant to young people today, knowing more and more that people are having fertility issues and wanting to start a family in perhaps a non-conventional or traditional way. So I think for me, in the last 18 months, I've grown or I've developed a greater understanding of the things that really interest me or that have impacted my life in different ways. And it's really, really special to me to see the ways that we can have an actual impact in those areas, not just in things that are important to me, but I guess issues more broadly. It's been quite eye-opening to me to realise how little time you actually spend in the chamber when you're in Parliament. And as a backbencher, of course, I guess the chamber time is just an opportunity for me to get my skills up, to talk about things that matter to me, and to, I guess, learn from the more senior members in the chamber. And that is very much what it often is, whether it be in question time or when speaking on a bill. But I think for me, Parliament is a really, really good time to get a lot done. I think in Parliament I get a lot done because I'm not out and about in the community or having meetings, and the opportunity to sit down and do some admin and get some emails and things in is actually really, really valuable. I think when I think about what I've learned in the chamber, I think that it's really, really impressive, but also scary to think that there are a small number of people in the chamber who possess almost all the skill when it comes to standing orders or procedural issues. And something that we often sort of joke about amongst colleagues and friends is what we'll do when those people with that knowledge move on. So much of what happens on both sides is basically in the hands of one or two experienced individuals in the chamber. And although I could only imagine how long it would take to have that level of expertise, it's incredibly impressive. And you can tell, I guess, just the breadth of experience and what that means and how it controls the narrative of what happens in the Parliament at any given time. I also have very much learned the value of the whip, just how important our government whip is, and I assume the opposition whip as well, and just how diligent that person has to be. I think our government whip is one of the best people. His office are completely invaluable and have really developed a great degree of respect for what they do in the whip's office and just how difficult it can be, particularly with a large caucus group who often have conflicting commitments throughout a parliamentary sitting day. I think the biggest thing that I've learned about being a representative is that people value having a Member of Parliament that is real, that tells the truth and is able to empathise. I think, I wouldn't be able to count the amount of times someone has said to me, "Thank you for having an open and honest discussion with me," or "Thank you for being real with me." And it makes a difference. People can tell the difference. People who actually, put their money where their mouth is. People who will actually come and be there on the ground, listen to their concerns, come out to a footy game. I have had so many amazing experiences, but I think that a lot of those are things that perhaps other members of Parliament may not have done in the past or may not have wanted to be as involved in. And I think that makes a real difference when people see that you're a real person and that you're really willing to be part of the community at large. Twice now I've competed in the pedal prix at Victoria Park with Modbury High School and their adult team. And the fact that I was willing to just get in, do it, compete, because they were looking for an extra woman on the team and otherwise they wouldn't have been able to put forward a women's team that year. What that meant to the team, to be someone who actually was willing to help out, get involved, I think was significant. In the same way, I offer myself for canteen duty at the footy clubs. I'm often doing a barbecue shift on the weekend. And I think volunteering in the community quite actively, but also proactively, offering yourself up as someone who can genuinely help with those things and is fit and able to do so, makes a really big difference. And I think people value that in their representative, and I hope we'll continue to see more of that. I think in your first sort of few months, it's hard to get into a rhythm. There isn't necessarily a textbook or guidebook to becoming an MP. I struggled in the beginning not knowing how to manage an office. I've never managed an office on my own before, and it's really hard to sort of get into the habits of not only being a representative, but being a boss when you haven't done that before as well. I think though, what's been really clear to me and what I'm in a really comfortable place with now is that in a role like this, you can make your own decisions and decide how you go about it. the things that work for me might not work for another Member of Parliament, and the same goes vice versa. But now I very much, I think I set my own rhythm, which is important, and sort of trying to understand what kind of Member of Parliament I'd like to be, not just for members of my community, but for myself, and the way that I wanted to, I guess, establish my schedule, establish my office, and what it is that we stand for, and what outcomes we want to have. But that was very much a learning process, sort of figuring out what the objectives would be and that sort of thing. I can only imagine how hard that would be for new members of Parliament who haven't worked in electorate offices before. I think that would be 10 times harder, really, really trying to understand what the rhythm is and the best way to go about it. I was lucky to have worked in some previously, but even then there's been heaps of teething issues, and I'm really happy with the rhythm that we've come to, but it's taken some time. I wish I knew that it's okay to take time for yourself. I think that particularly when you come out of a really busy campaign period, you want to do everything at once. 4 years is actually a really long time, and it took me probably a solid year to commit to not burning myself out completely. And although I'm super busy still and always out and about on weekends, I do consciously make time for myself in a way that I didn't in the beginning. And I think that makes a world of difference. You can't pour from an empty cup, and no one actually expects you to be everywhere at once, 24 hours a day. I think it is possible to get a good balance where you're working hard, you're visible, you're out and about, but you're also refreshed. And I think the more and more that I'm aware of that, I took a couple of weeks leave earlier in the year, which I think a year ago I couldn't have imagined doing. I think, again, it makes you more normal, more relatable, but also more refreshed to do the really, really big job that we as Members of Parliament have.